In a quiet suburban schoolyard in Cedar Heights, a soft-spoken substitute teacher was about to face a cruel provocation. What started as a routine lunch duty beneath the oaks took a shocking turn when she came face to face with a gang of mocking teens. Claire Dawson wasn't your typical educator. For over 12 years, she had served in the Special Forces under deep cover operations, known for her ice-cold focus and disarming calm in war zones. When she felt the sharp tug of her hair, followed by jeers and snickers, she had no idea she was stepping back into battle. Claire didn't retaliate with violence, but with a stare so commanding it silenced the entire courtyard. What came next would spark a seismic shift in the school's culture of fear. What began as casual cruelty would become a turning point of reckoning. The halls of Cedar Heights would never be the same after one teacher reminded them, never mistake silence for weakness. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The rain hammered against the windows of Willow Creek High School as Riley Hart adjusted her modest blazer and checked her watch. 7:15 a.m., 15 minutes before her first class as a long-term substitute. She'd arrived early, as was her habit. Reconnaissance was always better conducted when the battlefield was empty. The hallway stretched before her like a maze of cracked linoleum and flickering fluorescent lights. Budget cuts had left their mark everywhere: peeling paint, broken lockers, and that particular smell of neglect that clung to underfunded institutions. Riley's trained eye cataloged exit routes, blind spots, and potential choke points without conscious thought. Old habits died hard. Principal Dana Holloway materialized from her office like a shark sensing blood in the water. Her smile was practiced, political, and didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Hart, ready for your first day?" She wore a tailored suit that seemed out of place in the deteriorating school, her manicured nails clicking against a tablet as she spoke. "Yes, ma'am," Riley replied, her voice steady and soft. She'd perfected this version of herself over the past 2 years. Quiet, unremarkable, forgettable. The kind of person people dismissed without a second glance. "Good. Now I should warn you about Period 3. That's your most challenging class. These students can be difficult. They've already gone through 3 substitutes this semester." Holloway's tone carried a subtle threat wrapped in false concern. "You'll need tough skin to survive here. Some of these kids smell weakness like sharks smell blood." Riley nodded politely, though internally she wondered if Principal Holloway had ever actually seen a shark. Or blood, for that matter. The morning classes passed in a blur of disinterested faces and half-hearted attempts at engagement. Riley observed everything: the social hierarchies, the unspoken rules, the way certain students commanded respect while others cowered. By lunch, she'd identified the key players in the ecosystem of adolescent warfare. Period 3 arrived like a storm front. Eli Grant entered the classroom as if he owned it, and perhaps he did. Tall for his age, with the kind of casual confidence that money and privilege bred, he commanded attention without effort. His designer sneakers squeaked against the floor as he surveyed the room, blue eyes calculating. Behind him trailed his usual entourage athletes, popular kids, the ones who basked in his reflected glory. "So you're the new meat," Eli said, not bothering to take his assigned seat. "I'm Eli Grant. My dad's on the school board, so let's establish some ground rules." Riley set down her lesson plan and looked at him with the kind of patience that could outlast mountains. "Mr. Grant, please take your seat. We have a lot to cover today." Eli's smirk widened. "Or what? You'll send me to the principal?" "She's golfing with my father this afternoon." He leaned against a desk, deliberately invading her space. "Here's how this works, lady. You pretend to teach, we pretend to learn, and everybody goes home happy. Try to be a hero, and you'll end up like the others." In the back corner, a girl with dark hair and paint-stained fingers kept her head down, sketching frantically in a worn notebook. Riley's peripheral vision caught the quick, desperate strokes. This was Amara Singh, and she was drawing to escape. The other students watched the confrontation with the morbid fascination of Roman citizens at the Colosseum. "I understand," Riley said quietly, stepping back. Eli's crew laughed, and she saw something flicker in his eyes: surprise, maybe disappointment. Bullies needed resistance to feel alive. As the class settled into its familiar rhythm of chaos, Riley noticed more details. Benji Morales, a slight boy with glasses and a vintage camcorder hanging from his neck, was recording everything with the compulsive dedication of a war correspondent. He caught her eye and quickly looked away, but not before she glimpsed intelligence behind his nervous exterior. The lesson: American history, the Revolutionary War, became a metaphor Riley hadn't intended. She spoke about asymmetrical warfare, about how the Continental Army used knowledge of local terrain to defeat a superior force. Eli wasn't listening, but Amara was, her sketching slowing as she absorbed every word. "The thing about underdogs," Riley said, making eye contact with Amara, "is that they're usually underestimated. People assume weakness where they should see strategy." After class, as students filed out, Riley felt a presence that made her skin crawl. Not supernatural, she'd trained herself out of such nonsense, but the kind of hyper-awareness that came from having survived places where inattention meant death. "Marcus." The name escaped her lips before she could stop it, but there was no one there. Just empty desks and the lingering scent of teenage desperation. That evening, Riley sat in her sparse apartment, staring at a notebook filled with tactical observations disguised as teaching notes. Student behavioral patterns, administrative blind spots, social dynamics, all the intel she'd gathered in a single day. Her training screamed that this wasn't just a school with discipline problems. This was a system, and systems could be infiltrated, understood, and ultimately dismantled. She opened her laptop and began typing her incident report, though she doubted it would reach anyone who cared. As she wrote, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that somewhere in the shadows, Marcus was shaking his head at her retreat. "This isn't just a school," she whispered to the empty room, echoing words that seemed to come from beyond memory. Outside, rain continued to fall on Willow Creek, washing away the day's sins while tomorrow's gathered strength in the darkness. The incident happened on a Tuesday, during the kind of gray October morning that made everyone irritable. Riley had been at Willow Creek for 3 weeks, long enough to map the tribal territories and identify the pressure points in the adolescent power structure. Long enough to watch Amara Singh flinch every time Eli Grant's shadow fell across her desk. It started with a dare. Riley was explaining the Boston Tea Party when she heard the whispered challenge from Eli's corner of the room. $50 says you won't do it." The kind of statement that made weak boys do stupid things to prove they weren't weak. She continued writing on the whiteboard, her penmanship deliberate and controlled. The colonists understood that symbolic acts could be more powerful than direct confrontation. The hand grabbed her hair from behind, not a gentle tug or playful pull, but a cruel yank that snapped her head back and sent shooting pain down her neck. The classroom erupted in laughter as Eli Grant held a fistful of her brown hair like a trophy, his blue eyes bright with malicious glee. "Oops," he said, not bothering to hide his smirk. "Sorry, Ms. Hart. Guess I tripped." Riley's training kicked in instantly. Threat assessment, single attacker, civilian environment, witnesses present. Countermeasures available. 17 different ways to disable or eliminate the threat, ranging from a simple wrist lock to moves that would require medical attention. Her muscle memory screamed for action, her nervous system fluttered with adrenaline. That had kept her alive in places most people couldn't imagine, but she did nothing. At least, nothing visible. Instead, she turned slowly, her face a mask of controlled calm that would have impressed her drill instructors. "Mr. Grant, please take your seat." The laughter died as students sensed something had shifted. Eli's hand was still tangled in her hair, and for a moment, Riley saw uncertainty flicker in his eyes. He'd expected tears, anger, or cowering not. This granite stillness that seemed to absorb his aggression like a black hole. "Make me," he whispered, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne dot in the back corner. Benji Morales's camera captured everything. His hands shook slightly as he held the device, but his finger never left the record button. This was history in the making, and some part of him understood its importance. Riley reached up and carefully extracted her hair from Eli's grip, her movements precise and economical. "I said take your seat." Something in her voice made him step back. Not fear, exactly, but recognition, the way animals recognized predators even when they couldn't identify the threat. The rest of the class passed in uncomfortable silence. Riley finished her lesson about symbolic resistance while Eli sulked in his chair, his crew exchanging nervous glances. Amara Singh looked up from her sketching for the first time in weeks, her dark eyes fixed on Riley with something approaching hope. The bell rang. Riley gathered her materials with the same methodical precision she'd once used to clean her weapons. Only after the last student left did she allow herself to touch the tender spot where Eli had grabbed her hair. "Fucking kid," she muttered, then immediately felt guilty. Marcus would have reminded her that anger was a luxury she couldn't afford. 20 minutes later, Riley sat across from Principal Holloway in an office that reeked of air freshener and ambition. The principal's smile was even more brittle than usual, and she kept glancing at her phone as if expecting important calls. "Miss Hart, I understand there was an incident in your class today." "Yes, ma'am. A student physically assaulted me." "Assaulted?" Holloway's laugh was sharp as glass. "Now let's not be dramatic. Boys will be boys, especially at this age. Hormones, you know. Perhaps you misinterpreted what happened." Riley's training had taught her to read people, and right now she was reading. A woman who would sacrifice anyone to protect her position. He grabbed my hair and yanked it hard enough to cause pain. In any other context, that would be assault. Eli Grant is a good kid from a good family. His father donates generously to our programs. Holloway's fingers drummed against her desk. "I'm sure it was just a misunderstanding. Perhaps you could adjust your teaching style to be more engaging. These students respond better to authority figures who command respect." The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Riley had failed to command respect. Riley was the problem. "I see," Riley said quietly. "And what would you suggest I do differently?" "Well, for starters, you might want to project more confidence. Stand up straighter. Make eye contact. Show these kids you're not afraid of them." Holloway's tone was patronizing, the kind reserved for incompetent subordinates. "Teaching isn't for everyone, Miss Hart. It requires a certain backbone." Riley stood to leave, her movements controlled despite the fury building in her chest. "I'll keep that in mind." "Oh, and Miss Hart?" Holloway called after her. "I'd hate for this misunderstanding to reflect poorly on your permanent record. Sometimes it's better to let sleeping dogs lie." The threat was clear. Stay quiet or face consequences. Riley made it to the staff lounge before her hand started shaking. She'd faced down insurgents, survived ambushes, and completed missions that would give normal people nightmares. But this institutional gaslighting, the systematic dismissal of her experience, cut deeper than any physical wound. "Rough day?" Coach Brian Redmond looked up from his protein shake, his expression a mixture of amusement and contempt. "Let me guess, the Grant kid gave you trouble." "Something like that. Word of advice, sweetheart. These kids can smell weakness from a mile away. You walk in here acting like some timid little mouse, and they'll eat you alive." He stood, his bulk intimidating in the small space. "Maybe teaching isn't for you. Have you considered something more suitable, like administrative work?" Riley met his gaze steadily. "I'll manage, will you?" Redmond's smile was ugly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you can't handle a classroom full of teenagers." What's next? Calling in sick because little Susie hurt your feelings. He brushed past her on his way out, close enough that she could smell the testosterone and arrogance rolling off him in waves. Try to grow some balls, Hart. This job's not for the weak. Alone in the lounge, Riley slumped into a chair and closed. Her eyes, the familiar weight of failure pressed against her chest, the same crushing sensation she'd felt when the I'd exploded and took her entire squad. Different battlefield, same outcome. She'd been unable to protect the people counting on her. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Amara Singh stood in the doorway, clutching a folded piece of paper. Ms. Hart, I drew something for you. Riley unfolded the paper and felt her breath catch. The sketch showed her from behind, but instead of the vulnerable teacher Eli had. Humiliated, Amara had drawn a warrior. The figure stood straight and strong, surrounded by shadows that seemed to bend away from her light. Thank you, Riley whispered. It's beautiful. Amara's smile was small but genuine. I see things differently than other people, and I see you. After the girl left, Riley studied the sketch for a long time. In Amara's vision, she wasn't a victim or a failure. She was something else entirely, something that had been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. That night, Riley opened a new notebook and began writing. Not lesson plans or incident reports, but something else entirely. Tactical. Assessments. Behavioral patterns. Weaknesses in the system that could be exploited. She wrote until dawn, and when she finally closed the notebook, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. The war was about to begin. The transformation began subtly, the way all good intelligence operations did. Riley arrived at school 20 minutes earlier, stayed 30 minutes later, and spent her lunch periods conducting what she privately called reconnaissance missions. To any observer, she was simply a dedicated teacher trying to better understand her students. In reality, she was mapping a battlefield. Her first target was Benji Morales. She found him in the AV room during lunch, hunched over his camcorder with the intense concentration of a surgeon. The space was cluttered with outdated equipment, VHS players, ancient computers, and cables that looked like they'd been salvaged from the 1990s, perfect for someone who wanted to work unobserved. Impressive setup, Riley said from the doorway, careful to keep her voice casual. Benji jumped, nearly dropping his camera. Ms. Hart. I have permission to be here, Mr. Davies said. Relax. Riley stepped inside, noting how Benji's body language screamed anxiety. I'm not here to get you in trouble. I'm curious about your work. She'd studied his file. Benjamin Morales, 16, honor roll student with a passion for film. Father worked double shifts at the municipal water treatment plant. Mother cleaned offices downtown. Good kid from a hard-working family, the kind who documented everything because he understood that truth was fragile. It's just ... hobby stuff. Benji stammered, but his fingers protectively covered the camera's memory card slot. The incident in my class last week. Did you happen to catch that on camera? Benji's face cycled through several expressions: fear, guilt, calculation. I record everything for my documentary project. About high school life, social dynamics and stuff. Riley nodded slowly. Social dynamics, that's important work. People don't always see what's really happening. Exactly. Benji's nervousness dissolved into enthusiasm. Like everyone thinks they know what's going on, but they're only seeing the surface. The real story is in the details, the stuff people ignore. The stuff people ignore, Riley repeated. Like what happened to me. Benji's shoulders sagged. Look, Ms. Hart, I saw what Eli did. It was messed up. But if I show this to anyone, he'll destroy me. And not just me, my whole family. His dad has connections everywhere. Riley sat down across from him, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. What if I told you that sometimes the best way to stop a bully is to make sure people see who They really are. You mean like, expose him? I mean like documenting truth. You said it yourself, people don't always see what's really happening. Maybe they need help seeing. Benji studied her face, and Riley saw the moment when he recognized something familiar in her eyes. The look of someone who'd been knocked down but refused to stay down. There's something different about you, Ms. Hart. You're not like the other teachers. Different how? The way you move. The way you watch things, like you're always ready for something bad to happen. He paused, then added quietly, my uncle was in the Marines. He moves like that. Riley felt a chill of recognition. Benji was more observant than she'd given him credit for. Your uncle sounds like a smart man. He is. He also says that sometimes good people have to do hard things to protect others. Benji's hand moved to the camera. I've got the footage from last week. If you really want to help people, I'll help you. That afternoon, Riley found Amara Singh in the art room, working on a piece that made her breath catch. The canvas showed Willow Creek High School, but rendered as a prison. Students moved through the hallways like ghosts, while shadowy figures watched from the administrative offices. In the center, a small figure, clearly Amara herself, huddled beneath a staircase, surrounded by sketch pads that glowed like shields. That's powerful work, Riley said, approaching slowly. Amara looked up, her dark eyes wary. Ms. Hart, I didn't know you were interested in art. I'm interested in truth. And your work tells more truth than most people are willing to see. The girl's expression softened slightly. No one else thinks so. They just see weird pictures. What do you see when you look at this school? Amara was quiet for a long moment, her brush moving across the canvas with precise strokes. I see systems. Patterns. The way power flows from person to person, like electricity through circuits. Most people only see the surface, but I see the wiring underneath. Riley felt a surge of respect. And what does the wiring tell you? That Eli Grant isn't the real problem. He's just the weapon. Amara set down her brush and pulled out her sketchbook. I've been drawing what I see. Connections, meetings, money changing hands. She flipped through pages covered with detailed observations. Ali with his father outside the school. Principal Holloway shaking hands with a man in expensive suit. Coach Redmond receiving an envelope from someone Amara had labeled security company rep. This is intelligence gathering, Riley said, genuinely impressed. My parents always tell me to keep my head down, don't cause trouble. But trouble's already here. It's just that some people refuse to see it. Amara met Riley's eyes. You see it though, don't you? Riley nodded. I see it. Then what are we going to do about it? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Riley thought about her brother Marcus, about the men she'd lost, about all the time she'd had the chance to act and chose safety instead. Maybe it was time to stop running from who she was. We're going to document everything, she said finally. Every connection, every abuse of power, every moment when someone with authority chooses cruelty over justice. And then we're going to make sure the right people see it. Amara's smile was fierce. I've been waiting for someone to say that. Later that evening, Riley sat in her apartment with Benji's footage playing on her laptop. The image quality was surprisingly good, and the audio was clear enough to hear Eli's cruel laughter as he grabbed her hair. But more importantly, she could see the faces of the other students, the fear, the complicity, the way they all looked away when she met their eyes. She paused the video and studied Eli's expression. There was something there beyond simple cruelty. A confidence that bordered on invincibility, the kind that came from knowing you were protected by systems bigger than yourself. Riley opened her tactical notebook and began writing. Not lesson plans this time, but operational parameters. Objective: expose and dismantle the corruption at Willow Creek High School. Assets: Benji Morales, surveillance. Amara Singh, intelligence gathering. Herself: tactical planning and execution. Obstacles: Principal Holloway, institutional protection. Coach Redmond, enforcement. Eli Grant's father, external influence. And the broader system that allowed such abuse to flourish. She was 3 pages into her analysis when her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but the voice was familiar. Ms. Hart? This is Dr. Tasha Brooks, the school counselor. I was wondering if we could meet tomorrow. I have some concerns about certain students, and I think you might be able to help. Riley felt a spark of hope. I'd be happy to help, Dr. Brooks. What time works for you? Early, before the students arrive. I find that's when we can speak most freely. After hanging up, Riley returned to her notebook. The enemy was organized, well-funded, and entrenched. But they'd made a critical error. They'd underestimated their opposition. Riley Hart wasn't just a substitute teacher anymore. She was a soldier preparing for war. And this time, she wouldn't let her people down. Riley arrived at school 45 minutes early for her meeting with Dr. Tasha Brooks. The counselor's office was tucked away in a corner of the building, far from the administrative wing, a detail that spoke volumes about the school's priorities regarding student mental health. Dr. Brooks was younger than Riley had expected. Maybe early 30s, with kind eyes and the sort of calm demeanor that came from years of listening to teenage trauma. She gestured Riley to a chair across from her desk, which was cluttered with case files and stress balls, shaped like various animals. Thank you for coming so early, Dr. Brooks said, pouring coffee from a thermos. I wanted to speak frankly. And that's difficult when certain ears might be listening. Riley accepted the coffee, noting how Dr. Brooks glanced toward the door before continuing. I've been at Willow Creek for 6 months now, and I've seen patterns that concern me. Students who report bullying, then suddenly change their stories. Disciplinary records that disappear overnight. Parents who ask questions and find themselves facing unexpected problems with their jobs or housing. Sounds systematic, Riley observed. It is, and it's getting worse. Dr. Brooks pulled out a thick folder. Amara Singh has been documenting incidents through her art therapy sessions. Benji Morales has been recording everything for what he calls a social documentary. Both of them have mentioned you specifically. Riley set down her coffee. What did they say? That you see things. That you understand power structures in ways most adults don't. Dr. Brooks leaned forward. Riley, may I call you Riley? I know you're not just a substitute teacher. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Riley measured her response carefully. What makes you say that? The way you assess rooms when you enter them. How you position yourself near exits. The fact that you've identified the key players in this school's hierarchy faster than administrators who've been here for years. Dr. Brooks smiled. My ex-husband was military. I recognize the signs. Riley nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Help. These kids trust you in a way they don't trust other adults. Amara's showing more confidence than I've seen since she started here. Benji's talking about standing up for himself. Whatever you're doing, it's working. And what about the administration? Dr. Brooks's expression darkened. Principal Holloway has made it clear that my job is to manage problems, not solve them. Coach Redmond actively discourages students from coming to counseling. As for the school board, double quotes, she shrugged. Half of them are connected to the Grant family's business interests. Riley absorbed this information, filing it alongside her growing intelligence picture. So we're on our own, unless we can change the game entirely. That afternoon, Riley implemented her first tactical operation. She'd spent the morning analyzing the social dynamics of her third period class, identifying pressure points and leverage opportunities. Eli Grant commanded respect through fear and family influence, but fear was brittle. It could be shattered with the right application of force. Today we're going to discuss wolves in sheep's clothing, Riley announced as students filed in. Can anyone tell me what that phrase means? Several hands went up, But Riley called on Madison Chen, a quiet girl who usually sat in Eli's shadow. Someone who pretends to be harmless but is actually dangerous? Exactly. But here's an interesting question. What happens when the sheep learns to recognize the wolf? Eli lounged in his seat, radiating bored confidence. The sheep gets eaten anyway, because that's nature. Riley nodded thoughtfully. That's one perspective. But history shows us something different. The most successful predators are often brought down by prey that learns to work together. She walked toward Eli's desk, her movements casual but purposeful. Take the American Revolution. The British Empire was the wolf, powerful, organized, seemingly unstoppable. The colonists were scattered sheep, but they learned something important. What's that? Benji asked, his camera discreetly rolling. They learned that wolves rely on isolation. Separate the prey from the herd, and victory is easy. But united sheep can become something else entirely. Riley stopped directly in front of Eli's desk. They can become hunters. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The classroom had gone silent. Eli's smirk faltered slightly as he realized the lesson wasn't really about the Revolutionary War. Of course, Riley continued, some wolves are smarter than others. They don't hunt alone, they manipulate the system. They convince the shepherds to look the other way, maybe even feed them information about which sheep are causing trouble. Amara looked up from her sketching, understanding dawning in her dark eyes. But here's the thing about wolves who rely on corrupt shepherds, Riley said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. They're not actually strong. They're parasites. And parasites are vulnerable to something wolves fear more than anything else. What? Madison asked. Exposure. Eli's chair scraped against the floor as he stood up abruptly. This is stupid. What does any of this have to do with history? Riley met his gaze steadily. Everything, Mr. Grant. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. She paused, letting the words sink in. And history shows us that all tyrants eventually fall. The bell rang, but nobody moved for several seconds. When students finally began filing out, Riley noticed the change in their posture. Shoulders a little straighter, eyes a little brighter. For the first time in weeks, they weren't leaving as victims. Eli lingered, his blue eyes cold with calculation. Clever little speech, Ms. Hart, but you might want to remember something about history yourself. What's that? Revolutionaries usually end up dead. After he left, Riley found a note tucked under her lesson plan book. Go back to hiding. The handwriting was neat, adult, definitely not from a student. That evening, Dr. Brooks called with disturbing news. 3 parents have contacted me today. All of them received anonymous tips about their children's behavior, lies, of course, but detailed enough to cause problems. Someone's watching us, Riley. Riley wasn't surprised. She'd expected retaliation. Anyone we know? That's just it. I don't think it's anyone from the school. The information was too specific, too professional. This feels like outside surveillance. Riley thought about Eli's parting threat, about the security contracts Amara had sketched. Dr. Brooks, how familiar are you with the school's new security measures? You mean the cameras that never seem to record anything useful? Or the security consultants who show up for mysterious meetings with the administration? Both. Very familiar and very suspicious. Dr. Brooks paused. Riley, I think we need to move faster than planned. If they're bringing in outside muscle, things are about to get dangerous. That night, Riley sat in her apartment cleaning a pistol she legally couldn't carry on school property. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, a reminder of simpler times when enemies were clearly marked and rules of engagement were straightforward. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Some teachers know when to quit. Riley smiled grimly and texted back, some soldiers know when to fight. The response came immediately. We know who you are, Sergeant Hart. Rayleigh's blood ran cold. Her military service was supposed to be classified, buried under layers of official secrecy. If they knew her real background, they knew about Marcus, about the mission that went wrong, about why she'd really left the military. She typed carefully, "Then you know what I'm capable of." The reply took longer this time. "Back off, or your students pay the price." Riley stared at the message for a long time, then deleted the entire conversation. They'd made their first tactical error, threatening the people she was protecting. In her experience, that kind of mistake usually proved fatal. She opened her laptop and began typing operational orders. Phase 1 was complete intelligence gathering and alliance building. Phase 2 would require more aggressive tactics, time, to show them what a real Wolf looked like. Riley's morning reconnaissance revealed the first casualty of her psychological warfare. Madison Chun sat alone at lunch, her usual spot in Eli's orbit conspicuously empty. When Riley approached with her tray, Madison looked up with nervous gratitude. "Ms. Hart? Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Yesterday, after your lesson about wolves and sheep, Lee told me I was getting too smart for my own good. He said smart girls sometimes had accidents." Madison's voice trembled slightly. "I don't want to have an accident." Riley sat down across from her, noting how other students glanced their way with mixture of curiosity and fear. "Madison, what would you say if I told you that the best way to avoid accidents is to make sure you're not walking alone in the dark?" "I'd say that sounds like you're offering to turn on some lights." "Smart girl, that's exactly what I'm offering." An hour later, Riley found herself in the most unlikely place imaginable, the janitor's closet. Sam Harper had left a note in her mailbox, written in the careful block letters of someone who measured every word. "Need to talk. Storage room B12. Lunch." The storage room smelled of industrial cleaner and forgotten dreams. Sam stood among the mops and buckets like a ghost from Riley's past, his maintenance uniform unable to disguise the bearing of a man who'd seen combat. When he looked up at her approach, his eyes held the same haunted recognition she saw in her. "Mirror, Sergeant Riley Hart," he said quietly. "Afghanistan, 2019, 3rd Special Operations Squadron." Riley's hand instinctively moved toward her hip, where she would have carried a sidearm. "And you are?" "Navy E-aided, Chief Petty Officer Sam Harper, Ret." He gestured to a small workbench where he'd laid out what looked like electronic components. "Been watching you since day one. Knew you weren't what you seemed." "Watching me how?" Sam smiled for the first time since she'd known him, and suddenly he looked 10 years younger. "You think those security cameras don't work?" "Half of them don't, but I've been upgrading the others." Had to know who was friend and who was foe in this place. He handed her a tablet showing multiple camera feeds, hallways, classrooms, the principal's office. "Been documenting everything for months. The grad kids' extracurricular activities, Redmond's little side business, Holloway's private meetings with some very interesting people." Rayleigh studied the feeds, her tactical mind cataloging. "The intelligence goldmine. Why haven't you done anything with this?" "Same reason you've been playing substitute teacher instead of operator, I guess. Sometimes the mission finds you when you're not looking for it." Sam's expression grew serious. "But they're escalating. Last night, someone tried to break into my apartment. Professional job, no signs of forced entry, nothing missing. But my security system caught them planting surveillance devices. They know about both of us. Worse, they know about the kids." Sam pulled up another feed showing Amara walking home from school, unaware of the black sedan following at a distance. "Started yesterday, right after your little revolution speech." Someone sending a message. Riley felt the familiar cold fury that had carried her through countless operations. "Then it's time to send one back." "My thoughts exactly. But we're going to need help. I've got Benji and Amara on intelligence gathering. Dr. Brooks is providing cover from the counseling side." "Good start. But we need someone on the inside of the administration. Sam switched feeds to show Principal Holloway's office, where a meeting was in progress. Recognize the suit? Riley leaned closer, studying the tall man in expensive clothes shaking hands with Holloway. Private security? Apex Solutions. Same company that provides consulting services to half the school districts in the state. Word is they specialize in managing problems that regular security can't handle. Meaning? Meaning they've got connections in local law enforcement, the ability to make inconvenient evidence disappear, and a track record of intimidating anyone who asks too many questions. Sam's jaw tightened. They're not just hired muscle, Sergeant. They're a paramilitary organization operating under corporate cover. Riley absorbed this information, recalculating her operational parameters. She'd assumed they were dealing with small-time corruption and teenage bullying. Instead, they'd stumbled into something that required serious tactical planning. Sam, how long have you been documenting all this? 8 months. Started when I noticed too many good teachers leaving mid-semester, always after reporting problems. With certain students, he pulled up a file on the tablet. 15 resignations in 2 years, all following the same pattern. Report bullying or corruption, face escalating harassment, disappear quietly, and the administration just lets it happen? The administration orchestrates it. Holloway's been promised a promotion to district supervisor if she can turn Willow Creek into a model for their enhanced security protocols. Basically, they're using this school as a testing ground for authoritarian control methods. Riley thought about Amara's sketches, about the prison-like quality of her artistic vision. The girl had been seeing the truth all along. There's something else, Sam continued. Remember that anonymous note telling you to go back to hiding? Yeah. Handwriting. Analysis suggests it came from someone with military training. Specifically, someone trained in psychological operations. Riley felt pieces clicking into place. They've got a PSYOP specialist on their team. Makes sense. Apex Solutions recruits heavily from discharged military personnel, especially ones with questionable separation circumstances. Sam met her eyes. People like us, but working for the wrong side. So we're not just fighting a corrupt school system. We're fighting an organized enemy force with military training and unlimited resources. That's about the size of it. Riley was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Marcus, about the squad she'd lost, about all the time she'd chosen safety over action. Sam, what's your assessment of our operational capabilities? Honestly, we're outnumbered, outgunned, and outfinanced. They've got institutional support, legal protection, and professional operators. We've got a retired EAD tech, a burned-out special ops veteran, and 3 teenagers with cameras and sketchpads. And Sam's smile returned, feral and determined. And I've been planning for this fight for 8 months. They think they know what they're dealing with, but they've made a classic mistake, which is they underestimated their opposition. Classic error in asymmetrical warfare: assume your enemy's capabilities based on their apparent resources instead of their actual training. Sam began packing up his surveillance equipment. Sergeant, how do you feel about going back to war? Riley thought about Amara's fierce smile, about Benji's determination to document truth, about Madison Chun sitting alone at lunch because she'd dared to think for herself. She thought about all the students who'd learned to keep their heads down, who'd accepted that power meant the right to hurt others without consequence. I feel like it's about time. Good, because tomorrow we start phase 2 of the operation. And Sergeant, yeah? This time we don't leave anyone behind. Riley nodded, feeling something she hadn't experienced in years, the calm certainty that came from having a mission worth completing. They were going to war against corruption, against institutional evil, against the kind of systemic abuse that destroyed lives one victim at a time. And this time, she was going to win. Principal Holloway's Smile could have frozen July as she called Riley into her office the next morning. The space felt different, somehow more cameras, newer recording equipment, and the subtle scent of expensive cologne that suggested recent visitors. "Ms. Hart, please sit down. We need to discuss some concerning reports about your teaching methods." Riley settled into the chair, noting the positioning of furniture that forced her to sit with her back to the door. Basic intimidation tactics, the kind used on amateurs. "What sort of concerns?" "Several parents have called to express worry about your unconventional lessons. Revolutionary rhetoric, encouraging students to question authority, creating an atmosphere of paranoia and distrust." Holloway's fingers tapped against a thick file folder. "Frankly, some people are wondering if you're mentally stable." The Psychological Warfare Handbook, Chapter 1, Attack Credibility and Emotional Stability. Riley kept her expression neutral. "I teach American history. Revolution is part of the curriculum. Not the way you're teaching it. Yesterday's lesson about wolves and sheep? That wasn't history, Ms. Hart. That was propaganda." Students seemed engaged. Students seemed agitated. There's a difference. Holloway opened the file folder, revealing printed emails and what looked like medical records. "I've been reviewing your background, and I have to say, there are some gaps that concern me. Employment history that doesn't quite add up, references that can't be verified, and a rather suspicious lack of digital footprint for someone your age." Riley felt the familiar chill of recognition. They'd been digging, using resources that went far beyond what a small-town school principal should have access to. "My background check cleared when I was hired." Initial background checks can miss things, especially when someone has experience in, shall we say, less conventional careers. Holloway's smile sharpened. "The question is, Ms. Hart, what exactly are you hiding?" Before Riley could respond, Coach Redmond appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the space like smoke, all testosterone and barely controlled aggression. "Brian, perfect timing. We were just discussing Ms. Hart's future here at Willow Creek." Redmond crossed his arms, his bulk blocking the only exit. "Been hearing some interesting stories about you, Hart. Students getting ideas above their station, asking questions they shouldn't be asking. Such as why certain disciplinary records seem to disappear. Why some kids get special treatment while others face the full consequences of their actions." His eyes were cold, calculating. Funny thing about questions, sometimes they lead to uncomfortable answers. Riley stood slowly, noting how both administrators tensed. "Are you threatening me, Coach Redmond?" "Threatening? Who said anything about threats?" Holloway's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "We're simply informing you that your contract will not be renewed, effective immediately." "On what grounds?" "Insubordination, creating a hostile learning environment, and—" Holloway paused dramatically. "Concerns about your mental health following reports of erratic behavior." The setup was elegant in its simplicity. Question her mental state, paint her as an unreliable narrator, then remove her from the battlefield before she could cause more damage. Standard corporate warfare tactics, executed with military precision. "I see. And what about my students?" "Will be much better off with a teacher who understands appropriate boundaries," Redmond said. "Someone who doesn't fill their heads with dangerous ideas about fighting systems they can't understand." Riley gathered her things slowly, buying time to think. They'd moved faster than anticipated, which meant either her psychological operations had been more effective than she'd realized, or they were operating under external pressure. Either way, the timeline had just accelerated dramatically. "Ms. Hart?" Holloway's voice carried a note of false concern. "I do hope you'll consider seeking professional help. Sometimes people who've experienced trauma have difficulty distinguishing between past threats and present reality." The parting shot was perfectly aimed to acknowledge her military background while simultaneously questioning her grip on reality. Classic PSYOPs technique, designed to make her doubt herself even as they eliminated her from the equation. Riley paused at the door. "Principal Holloway, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "In all your educational training, did anyone ever teach you about the Streisand effect?" Holloway's expression flickered with uncertainty. "I'm not familiar with that term. It's when trying to hide something actually draws more attention to it. Named after a celebrity who tried to suppress photos of her house and ended up making them famous worldwide." Riley smiled pleasantly. "Fascinating phenomenon, especially in the age of social media." She left them standing there, puzzle pieces clicking into place behind their eyes, just a little too late. 20 minutes later, Riley sat in her car in the school parking lot, fielding rapid-fire text messages from her network. The news had spread faster than wildfire through the student population. "Benji, they fired you? This is B. Amara. We knew this would happen. Ready for phase 2? Dr. Brooks, can you meet me off campus? We need to talk. Sam, basement access is compromised. Moving to contingency location." Riley started her engine, checking her mirrors for surveillance. Sure enough, a black sedan had taken position 3 spaces behind her, professional distance. Maintained by someone who knew how to conduct mobile surveillance. Let them watch. The real work was about to begin. She drove to the small cafe downtown where Dr. Brooks was waiting in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee growing cold between her hands. The therapist looked exhausted, her usual calm demeanor cracked around the edges. "They moved against 3 families last night," Dr. Brooks said without preamble. Amara's father was questioned by immigration officials about paperwork that's been valid for years. Benji's mother received a surprise inspection from the health department that shut down the restaurant where she works. Madison Chun's parents got an anonymous tip that their daughter was involved in drug activity at school. Riley absorbed the information, anger building in her chest like pressure in a steam engine. Coordinated intimidation. "They're trying to isolate us by threatening the people we care about. It's working. Madison's parents are pulling her out of school. Amara's family is talking about moving back to California, and Benji." Dr. Brooks shook her head. "Someone followed him home yesterday. Professional surveillance, close enough that he knew he was being watched." "What about Sam?" "That's the thing, I can't reach him. His phone goes straight to voicemail, and when I drove by his apartment complex, there were police cars in the parking lot." Riley felt the familiar cold calculation of combat planning taking over. The enemy had escalated to direct action, which meant the rules of engagement had fundamentally changed. "Dr. Brooks, I need you to get a message to the kids. Tell them to implement Communication Protocol 7. "What's Communication Protocol 7? "Something Sam and I worked out yesterday. Emergency procedures for when primary assets are compromised." Riley stood, scanning the cafe for potential threats. "How secure is your position?" "I'm not sure. Holloway called me into her office after you left. Asked a lot of questions about my counseling sessions with certain students. Professional curiosity, she called it. They're moving to isolate and neutralize all the adults, then deal with the students without interference." Riley's mind raced through tactical options. "Which means we need to move to the final phase of the operation. Which is full exposure. Everything we've documented, every piece of evidence, every connection between the school administration and Apex Solutions, all of it goes public simultaneously." Riley pulled out her phone. "But first, we need to extract Sam and make sure our assets are protected." "Riley, what if we're in over our heads? What if this is bigger than we can handle?" Riley thought about Marcus, about the promise she'd made to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. "Dr. Brooks, do you know what the difference is between a good soldier and a great one?" "What?" "A good soldier follows orders and completes missions. A great soldier knows when the mission is worth dying for." Riley headed toward the door. "This is worth dying for." As she left the cafe, Riley felt the familiar weight of purpose settling over her shoulders. The enemy had made their move, escalating from psychological warfare to direct intimidation. They'd threatened her students, compromised her allies, and revealed the true scope of their operations. Time to remind them why Special Operations Forces were taught to never leave anyone behind. The war was about to become very real. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town hadn't been used for legitimate business in years, which made it perfect for Sam Harper's purposes. Riley found him in the loading dock area, surrounded by military surplus equipment and enough surveillance monitors to run a small intelligence operation. "Took you long enough," Sam said without looking up from a laptop displaying multiple data streams. "Figured they'd move against you first." "They did. Fired me this morning on grounds of mental instability." Riley studied the setup, impressed despite their circumstances. "Nice operation center. 8 months of preparation pays off. I've been moving equipment here piece by piece, setting up secure communications, creating backup systems for everything." Sam gestured to the monitors. "Good thing, too. They hit my apartment 2 hours after our meeting yesterday. Casualties? They think they got everything. Missed the real prize, though." Sam pulled up a new screen showing financial records, email communications, and security camera footage. "Meet the Apex Solutions corporate structure. Fully automated data mining operation I've been running since day one." Riley leaned closer, studying bank transfers between Apex Solutions and the school district. "This is millions of dollars. Pilot program funding. Willow Creek is a test case for something they call Enhanced Educational Security Protocols. Basically, they're developing a model for turning public schools into private security contracts." Sam switched screens. "Look at this." The new display showed a PowerPoint presentation titled Project Classroom Control, Monetizing Student Discipline. Riley felt sick as she read the bullet points. Phase 1. Identify problem schools with high incident rates. Phase 2. Insert security, consultants and administrative allies. Phase 3. Create controlled chaos to justify expanded security measures. Phase 4. Implement full privatization model. They're manufacturing the problems they're being paid to solve, Riley said. Worse, they're creating traumatized student populations that will accept authoritarian control as normal. Sam pulled up another file. Eli Grant isn't just a random bully, he's an asset. His father's company provides the private security contracts, and Eli creates the incidents that justify expanding those contracts. Riley studied the psychological profile attached to Eli's file. They've been training him since middle school. Psychological conditioning, targeted harassment techniques, specific intimidation protocols. Kid doesn't even know he's being used. Sam's expression darkened. The really sick part? They identify natural leaders among the student population and systematically break them down. Amara, Benji, Madison, they're all on a target list. For what? Elimination from the system. Transfer to alternative schools, suspensions that become dropouts, psychological pressure until they break or disappear. Sam switched to surveillance footage of Amara walking home. This isn't just about money, Riley. It's about social engineering. On a massive scale, Riley felt the cold fury of recognition. They're weaponizing education. And they're about to export the model to 50 school districts across 3 states. Sam brought up a calendar showing upcoming school board meetings. Tomorrow night, Holloway presents the Willow Creek results to a consortium of superintendents and private security companies. If the numbers look good, Apex Solutions gets contracts worth hundreds of millions. What numbers? Reduced incident reports, improved test scores, decreased teacher turnover. Sam's smile was grim. All fabricated, of course. They've been manipulating statistics for months. Riley studied the timeline, calculating operational parameters. How much evidence? Do we have everything? Financial records, internal communications, surveillance footage, psychological profiles. The complete operational plan for Project Classroom Control. Sam gestured to a wall of hard drives. Enough to destroy Apex Solutions and send half their leadership to federal prison. And how much time do we have? 18 hours until Holloway's presentation. After that, the program goes national and our evidence becomes just one whistleblower complaint against a billion-dollar corporation with unlimited legal resources. Riley nodded, her mind shifting into tactical planning mode. Extraction status. On our assets? Benji's safe got him out through the old maintenance tunnels before they could corner him. He's at his uncle's place with all his video equipment. Sam switched screens. Amara's trickier. Immigration officials have her family under surveillance, but she managed to slip out during a shift change. She's en route here with her evidence portfolio. Dr. Brooks? Compromised but mobile. Holloway placed her on administrative leave, but she managed to copy student counseling files that show the pattern of targeted harassment. Sam's expression grew serious. Riley, there's something else. I intercepted communications between Apex Solutions and a private military contractor. Meaning? Meaning they're bringing in serious muscle for tomorrow night's presentation. Former special operations personnel, armed and authorized for crowd control if protesters show up. Sam met her eyes. They know we're planning something. Riley felt the familiar calm that preceded combat operations. Then we need to move faster than they expect. What are you thinking? We don't wait for tomorrow night. We strike during school hours when all the targets are in one place and their security is focused on external threats. Riley began pacing, her tactical mind assembling the operation. Live broadcast from inside the school, simultaneous data dump to every news outlet in the state, and physical evidence delivery to federal authorities. That's a lot of moving parts, which is why it will work. They're expecting a traditional whistleblower complaint, or maybe a protest. They're not expecting a coordinated intelligence operation with multiple vectors of attack. Sam's grin was predatory. Now you're talking my language. What do you need? Access to the school's internal network, control of their PA system, and about 6 hours to coordinate everything. Riley pulled out her phone. Can you get Benji and Amara here within the hour? Already in motion. They should arrive any minute. Good, because we're about to remind Apex Solutions why you never declare war on people who've actually fought one. As if summoned by her words, Benji's voice echoed from the warehouse entrance. Ms. Hart? Sam? Please tell me this is the part where we fight back. Riley smiled, feeling more like herself than she had in years. Benji, this is the part where we win. The final battle for Willow Creek High School was about to begin. The attack came at 2:47 a.m., 3 blocks from Riley's apartment. She'd been returning from a late-night coordination session with the team when she noticed the black sedan, maintaining perfect surveillance distance. Too perfect for local law enforcement, too sloppy for federal agents. Private contractors then. Apex Solutions had escalated to direct action. Riley pulled into the parking garage of a 24-hour diner, using the concrete pillars and poor lighting to mask her movements. Her tactical training kicked in automatically. Assess terrain, identify exit routes, prepare for contact. The sedan followed, positioning itself to block her primary escape route, while a second vehicle she hadn't noticed before sealed the secondary exit. Professional operation. Military precision. Riley stepped out of her car with her hands visible, playing the role of confused civilian while her peripheral vision cataloged threats. 3 men emerged from the vehicles, all carrying themselves with the distinctive bearing of special operations veterans. The leader was tall, scarred, and moved with the calculated aggression of someone accustomed to violence. Ms. Riley Hart, he said, his voice carrying a slight southern accent. Or should I say, Staff Sergeant Hart, 3rd Special Operations Squadron. Riley kept her expression neutral. I think you have me confused with someone else. Afghanistan. 2019. Operation Silent Thunder. Your entire squad was killed in an IED ambush except for you. The man's smile was cold as winter. Survivor's guilt can be a powerful motivator, can't it? Makes people do stupid things like playing hero when they should walk away. The psychological profile was accurate, which meant they'd accessed classified military records. Apex Solutions had connections that reached into the highest levels of government. What do you want? Simple. Stop interfering with our business. Operations, the leader gestured to his companions. My associates and I represent interested parties who would prefer that certain ... investigations be discontinued. And if I refuse, then we'll have to discuss the matter with your young friends. That Singh girl has such an artistic eye, doesn't she? Be ashamed if something happened to her drawing hand. And the Morales boy, such a promising filmmaker. Car accidents can be so devastating to creative types. Riley felt the familiar cold rage building in her chest, the same fury that had carried her through countless firefights. They'd made the classic mistake of threatening her people. You know what your problem is? Riley said, her voice deadly quiet. Enlighten me. You've done your homework on Staff Sergeant Hart, but you don't know anything about who she became after Afghanistan. The attack, when it came, was swift and brutal. Riley moved with the precision of years of combat training, targeting pressure points and vital areas with economical violence. The first contractor went down with a crushed larynx before his backup could clear their weapons. The second managed to draw his pistol before Riley's elbow shattered his wrist. The leader was better trained, managing to land a solid hit to her ribs before she drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping, as Riley relieved him of his sidearm. Here's how this works, Riley said, pressing the barrel against his temple. You're going to call your handlers and tell them that their intimidation tactics just escalated this from an investigation to a war. And in war, Sergeant, people die. You have no idea what you're up against, the leader wheezed. Apex Solutions has resources you can't imagine. We can make you disappear, destroy your credibility, turn your friends against you. Maybe, but I only need 18 hours. Riley stepped back, keeping the weapon trained on him. And in 18 hours your entire operation becomes front-page news across 3 states. She disabled their vehicles with precise gunshots to the engine blocks, then disappeared into the night, leaving them stranded with their failure. By morning, the retaliation had spread beyond Riley to her entire network. Benji arrived at the warehouse with his left arm in a sling and a split lip, having been jumped by 3 older teenagers while walking home from school. They knew exactly where to find me, he said, wincing as Dr. Brooks examined his injuries. Not random street kids, these guys had training. They kept asking about videos, about what I'd recorded. Amara's family had been hit even harder. Immigration officials had arrived at dawn with a warrant based on anonymous tips about falsified documentation. Her father had been detained, and deportation proceedings were already in motion. They're trying to break us by attacking our support systems, Dr. Brooks observed, cleaning Benji's wounds with practiced efficiency. Classic psychological warfare: isolate the targets from their emotional anchors. Sam looked up from his monitoring station, his expression grim. It gets worse. I've been tracking communications traffic, and they're bringing in additional assets. Former military contractors, private security firms, even some off-the-books federal resources. How many? Best estimate? 20 to 30 operatives, all with combat experience. They're treating tomorrow's operation like a military engagement. Riley studied the tactical display, calculating odds and operational parameters. They were outnumbered 10 to 1 by professionally trained opponents with unlimited resources and legal protection. In any conventional engagement, the outcome would be predetermined: Sam, status on our data package? Complete and ready for transmission. Financial records, internal communications, video evidence, psychological profiles, everything needed to destroy Apex Solutions and expose Project Classroom Control. Sam gestured to a server rack humming with activity. Automated distribution. System will hit every major news outlet, federal law enforcement agency, and social media platform simultaneously. And our inside access? Still secure. Maintenance tunnels give us direct access to the school's network infrastructure and PA system. We can be in and out before their security team knows we're there. Riley nodded, then looked at each of her. Elias in turn. I need everyone to understand what we're walking into tomorrow. This isn't a protest or a whistleblower complaint. This is direct action against a military-grade opposition force. People could get hurt. People could die. Ms. Hart, Benji said quietly, what happens to all the other kids if we don't do this? How many more schools get turned into testing grounds for their social engineering experiments? Amara looked up from her sketching. She'd been drawing even while her world collapsed around her. My dad always said that sometimes good people have to do dangerous things to protect others. That's why he brought us to America. Dr. Brooks closed her medical kit with a decisive snap. I've spent 6 months watching children suffer while adults look the other way. If there's a chance to stop that, I'm willing to take the risk. Sam's grin was sharp as a blade. Besides, we've got something they don't expect. What's that? A team that's fighting for something bigger than money or power. In my experience, that usually wins. Riley felt the familiar weight of command settling over her shoulders. Tomorrow they would walk into a war zone armed with nothing but courage. And the truth. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. All right, people. Let's review the operational plan one more time. Because tomorrow we're going to remind Apex Solutions why they should never have picked a fight with people who actually know how to fight back. The morning of the operation dawned gray and cold, matching Riley's mood as she conducted final equipment checks in the warehouse. Sam had provided tactical gear that wouldn't look out of place on a maintenance worker coveralls, tool belts, and communication devices disguised as standard radio equipment. Nervous? Dr. Brooks asked, adjusting her own disguise as a substitute teacher returning to collect personal items. Terrified, Riley admitted. But that's normal before any major operation. The fear keeps you sharp, keeps you alive. Benji tested his camera equipment one final time. The compact device is small enough to be concealed in his school supplies. Miss Hart, what if they recognize us? What if security stops us before we can get into position? Then we improvise. That's what soldiers do: adapt, overcome, accomplish the mission despite changing circumstances. Riley checked her watch. Amara, you're certain about the timing? The girl nodded, her dark eyes fierce with determination. Principal Holloway's presentation starts at 2 p.m. in the main auditorium. All the Apex Solutions executives will be there, along with school board members from 6 districts. It's the perfect target for maximum exposure. Sam emerged from behind his server rack, holding a small device that looked like a standard flash drive. Data package is loaded and ready. Once we access the school's network, this uploads everything to our automated distribution system. 30 seconds to global exposure. And backup plans? If the network access fails, Benji's footage goes live on social media. If we're captured before transmission, the dead man switch activates and sends everything to the FBI automatically. Sam's expression was grimly satisfied. They can stop us, but they can't stop the truth from getting out. The team moved out in stages, using different routes to avoid detection. Riley entered through the maintenance entrance, her credentials still valid despite her termination, an oversight that would prove costly for Apex Solutions. Sam took the basement approach, accessing the building's infrastructure through utility tunnels, that bypassed all security checkpoints. Dr. Brooks and Benji used the front entrance, playing their roles as returning faculty and student. Only Amara remained outside, positioned to document everything from a safe distance and serve as emergency backup if the internal team was compromised. Riley made her way through familiar hallways that now felt like enemy territory. Students moved between classes with the subdued energy of people living under occupation, heads down, voices quiet, the natural exuberance of youth dampened by systematic intimidation. She reached the main office just as Principal Holloway emerged from a conference room, flanked by 3 men in expensive suits who radiated predatory confidence. Riley recognized the type immediately: corporate killers who measured success in quarterly profits and acceptable casualty rates. Gentlemen, as you can see, our enhanced security protocols have created a much more manageable learning environment, Holloway was saying. Incident reports are down 60%. Test scores have improved across all demographics, and teacher retention has stabilized. Impressive results, replied the lead executive, a silver-haired man whose smile never reached his eyes. And you achieved this through targeted intervention with problem students. Exactly. By identifying natural leaders among the student population and implementing appropriate corrective measures, we've eliminated the primary sources of disruption. Holloway's tone was clinical, discussing human beings like defective equipment. The Willow Creek model is ready for immediate expansion. Riley felt sick hearing her students reduced to statistical problems requiring corrective measures. She activated her communication device, sending a signal to Sam that the targets were in position. His response crackled through her earpiece. Network access achieved. Beginning data upload now. In the auditorium, the presentation was beginning. Riley slipped inside through a service entrance, positioning herself where she could observe while remaining hidden. The room was packed with school administrators, corporate executives, and what looked like private security personnel stationed at every exit. On stage, Principal Holloway began her presentation with polished confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to report that Project Classroom Control has exceeded all projected outcomes. Through strategic partnership with Apex Solutions, we've transformed a failing educational environment into a model of efficiency and control. The PowerPoint slides showed impressive statistics: reduced violence, improved academic performance, enhanced safety metrics. All lies, of course, but presented with the kind of professional polish that convinced people who wanted to believe. The key to our success, Holloway continued, has been the identification and neutralization of disruptive elements within the student population. By targeting natural leaders and implementing psychological pressure through our enhanced disciplinary protocols, we've created a more compliant and manageable student body. Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. Riley felt rage building in her chest as these people discussed children like livestock to be managed and controlled. Sam's voice crackled through her earpiece. Upload complete. Package is in the system and broadcasting now. Riley smiled grimly and activated the school's PIA system using codes Sam had provided. Her voice echoed through every classroom, every hallway, every corner of the building. Students and faculty of Willow Creek High School, this is Riley Hart. What you're about to hear is the truth about what's been happening in your school. The audio from Holloway's presentation began broadcasting throughout the building. Every word about neutralizing disruptive elements and managing student populations, heard by the very students being discussed. In the auditorium, chaos erupted. Holloway frantically tried to shut down the PA system while Apex Solutions executives shouted orders to their security teams. But it was too late. The truth was spreading like wildfire through social media as Benji's cameras captured everything. That's right, Riley continued over the PA. You've been part of an experiment in social control. Your bullying, your fear, your silence, All of it was engineered by adults who see you as problems to be solved, rather than human beings deserving of respect. She could hear doors slamming, security teams mobilizing, voices shouting orders. But the damage was done. Students throughout the school were hearing the truth about their systematic oppression, and many were responding with the outrage of the betrayed. To Amara Singh, Benji Morales, Madison Chun, and every other student who's been targeted for showing leadership or asking questions, you are not problems. You are the solution. You are the future these people fear because you refuse to be controlled. Riley made her way toward the auditorium, where security teams were trying to restore order. Through the windows, she could see news vans arriving as the story spread beyond the school's walls. And to Principal Holloway, Coach Redmond, and the executives from Apex Solutions, your experiment is over. The evidence of your crimes is now in the hands of federal authorities, and the world is watching. As Riley entered the auditorium, she saw Eli Grant standing in the center of the chaos. His usual confidence shattered as he realized he'd been nothing more than a tool in someone else's game. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked like what he was, a confused, manipulated teenager who'd been trained to hurt others. Ms. Hart. Amara's voice came through her earpiece. Police are here, and FBI vehicles are pulling up. It's working. Riley smiled as federal agents began surrounding the Apex Solutions executives. The operation was a success, the truth was out, the evidence was spreading, and the people responsible were finally facing consequences. The last lesson of Willow Creek High School was complete. When good people stand together against corruption, even the most powerful systems can fall. 3 weeks later, Riley stood in the empty hallway of Willow Creek High School, watching as workers removed the fake security cameras that had never been intended to protect anyone. The building felt different, now lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted from its foundations. Principal Holloway was gone, facing federal charges for conspiracy and fraud. Coach Redmond had resigned in disgrace after recordings surfaced of him coordinating intimidation tactics with Apex Solutions operatives. The entire corporate structure of Project Classroom Control had collapsed under the weight of public outrage and criminal investigation. Ms. Hart? Dr. Brooks approached from the counseling office, carrying a box of files. I wanted to thank you before you left. Thank me for what? For reminding me why I became a counselor in the first place. For showing me that sometimes the system has to be broken before it can be fixed. Dr. Brooks smiled. The new principal wants me to head up a trauma recovery program for students affected by the intimidation campaign. Real therapy, not damage control. Riley nodded, genuinely pleased. The kids will need that. Systematic abuse leaves scars that take time to heal. What about your scars? Have you thought about Dr. Morrison's offer? Dr. Morrison was a veteran counselor from the state university who'd reached out after the story broke. She ran a program that paired former military personnel with educational institutions, helping both veterans reintegrate and schools address complex security challenges through mentorship rather than intimidation. I'm considering it, Riley said. But first, I have some people to check on. Her first stop was the art room, where Amara Singh was working on a new mural. The piece showed Willow Creek High School, but transformed students walking with their heads up, teachers engaging rather than controlling, and sunlight streaming through windows that had seemed permanently shadowed. It's beautiful, Riley sighed. Amara looked up, paint smudges on her cheeks and genuine joy in her eyes. My family's staying. Dad's deportation proceedings were dropped when the FBI investigation revealed they were based on falsified reports. And I got the scholarship full ride to art school. You deserve it. Your work helped save this place. Our work helped save this place. Amara gestured toward a corner of the mural where a small figure stood watching over the school, unmistakably Riley, though rendered as more symbol than person. Heroes should be remembered, don't you think? Riley felt tears threatening, the good kind for once. I'm not a hero, Amara. I'm just someone who learned to stop running from fights that matter. Same thing, sometimes. Her next stop was the AV room, where Benji Morales was editing footage for what had become a feature-length documentary about corporate corruption in education. His arm had healed completely, and his confidence had grown along with his reputation as a serious journalist. Ms. Hart. Perfect timing. Benji gestured to his editing setup, which had expanded considerably thanks to donations from news organizations impressed by his work. I just finished the segment about the warehouse operation. Want to see? The footage was remarkable professional quality that captured not just the events, but the emotional stakes involved. Benji had developed an eye for the human story behind the tactical operation. This is going to help a lot of schools avoid what happened here, Riley said. That's the idea. I've got interview requests from 60 school districts that want to review their security contracts after seeing our evidence. Benji's grin was pure satisfaction. Turns out documentation really is the best weapon against corruption. And Eli? Benji's expression grew more serious. Therapy mostly. Turns out being trained to hurt people from childhood leaves its own kind of trauma. But he's working on it. Asked me to tell you he's sorry for whatever that's worth. It was worth something. Not forgiveness, that would take time, but recognition that Ayla had been as much a victim of the system as anyone else. Riley's final stop was the janitor's closet, which Sam Harper had converted into something resembling a small command center. He was training his replacement, young veteran who'd answered the call for ethical security consultants to help schools address real safety concerns without sacrificing student dignity. Heading out? Sam asked, noting her travel bag. Dr. Morrison wants me in Denver tomorrow. Another school district with some problems that need sorting out, Riley smiled. Apparently, there's demand for people with our particular skill set. Just remember, not every mission requires going to war. Sometimes the best victory is preventing the fight entirely. Wise words from a man who spent 8 months planning for war. Someone had to be ready. Doesn't mean I enjoyed it. Sam handed her a small device. Encrypted communication link. In case you run into situations that require backup. Riley pocketed the device, understanding the subtext. They'd formed something rare, a network of people committed to protecting others, regardless of personal cost. That kind of alliance didn't end just because one mission was complete. As she drove away from Willow Creek, Riley thought about the call that had started everything, Dr. Morrison's veteran support program, looking for people willing to mentor rather than intimidate, to build rather than break down. The program was expanding rapidly as word spread about successful interventions in troubled schools. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Ms. Hart, this is Madison Chen. I wanted you to know I'm running for student body president at my new school. Thank you for teaching me that leadership means protecting others, not controlling them. Riley smiled, thinking about Marcus and the promise she'd made to never again let good people stand alone against systems designed to break them. The war against institutional corruption would never really end. There would always be people who saw power as an opportunity to hurt others, but there would also always be people willing to stand up and fight back. And sometimes that was enough. The road ahead stretched toward Denver, toward another school in crisis, toward students who needed someone to remind them that they deserved better than systematic oppression, disguised as education. Riley Hart drove toward that future with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd finally found her place in the world, not as a soldier following orders, but as a protector choosing her battles. The work continued. The mission endured, and somewhere behind her, in a small-town high school that had learned to hope again, students walked the halls with their heads held high, knowing that when the powerful tried to prey on the vulnerable, there were people willing to fight back. That knowledge, Riley reflected, was the most important lesson of all. Next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.